Quality and course design. We were expecting few more people, but it looks like that's what we have. So during the special session, we have 3 presentations. I will start with the session. I have some ideas, some questions, and some issues to talk about in reference to accreditation. And then we have 2 more presentations, which are again related to accreditation and assessment issues. So let me, being the chair of the session, I'm taking advantage of the fact, because I'm the chair, so I can do whatever I want. I'll start with my presentations, and other 2 members are Alfonso Duran and Teresa Sánchez. I hope I'm pronouncing their names right. And they are from European University of Madrid, Spain, and I will not even try pronouncing that, so I will say CTI France. So let's start with my part of the presentation. As you can see, I start with the ABIT accreditation introduction, which is a US-based accreditation board for engineering and technology. I am with the ABIT for the last 9 years. I used to be program evaluator for computer science programs and information system programs, and now I'm a commissioner for Computing Accreditation Commission. ABIT has been an accrediting program for about 60 years. Normally, people ask questions why we should get the programs accredited, why we should do assessment, or what is the right approach. Should we go with accreditation to ensure the quality of our programs, or we should just try our own level best and make sure if we are satisfied with the quality of the program and we know that the students are happy with the quality, that we should just go with whatever we have. Now, generally speaking, why the programs are accredited? Again, the first idea is for their academic standing. If in states, for example, a program is ABIT accredited, of course it has a better standing among other programs. We have around 2,600 universities, so there are a lot of engineering programs in the market. The place where I am in San Diego, we have 8 to 9 universities. So when a student has to choose which university to go, if it's an ABIT accredited program, that program has a better chance of attracting more students. Now, it also ensures the professional competence the student will have who will be graduating with this program. So there is always a plus point why a program should be accredited. Now, as an engineering education, there are certain key areas where we try to concentrate. First one is development of the curriculum, graduate studies, research and development, university-industry ties, and then finally the accreditation. Now, whenever we are going for accreditation or a program applies for accreditation, our university thinks of getting their programs accredited. Now, there are certain issues that they need to address, or there are certain areas that they have to focus. For example, the faculty that they have to ensure that they have a high quality of faculty. In the facilities, yes, they also have to ensure they have a certain level of facilities available. The budget is consistent with whatever their development plans are. Through my experience, I have learned a lot of times when we go to accredit a program, a lot of times the department chair, the faculty will talk to us and say, in your final report, can you say something that we need more budget, we need more funding? Because they want some external body to say this, that they are really in need of money and resources. So that also is something that the universities or programs can achieve through this accreditation. Now, the quality of engineering education, or for that matter, any education, is in the interest of the employers. when they employ your end product, which is our students, we want to ensure that our students are in great demand. So the product that we are launching in the market is sellable. And the employers, they are looking at the product and say if it's a good product or it's not a good product. So in turn, what we get, if our students are not sellable, that means they are not getting jobs, of course, in return, our enrollments will go down. And if the employers are happy with our students, of course, our enrollments will jump. And how we can convince employers that we have a better program? By getting this accreditation. So quality of engineering education is in the interest of employers, engineering schools and departments, and licensing and accrediting agencies. Now, there are professional organizations and professional licensing agencies who will accredit their program in terms of their specialized nature of the programs within the engineering. So that will also help to again market whatever we are producing. These are generally the questions, accreditation questions that people generally need to address whenever we are thinking, ensuring the quality and ensuring the accreditation. I will not go through these questions right here, one after another, but at the end, as I said, we will have a session where we will have questions and answers. And if somebody is interested, I'll put back this slide and we will go into greater detail. Now, what we need, because of the different types of programs that are now being introduced, why schools and departments are introducing these new types of engineering programs? Because the demand of these programs is now gradually increasing. Initially, when I was studying, there were only few engineerings that we had: electrical, civil, mechanical, and town planning or structural engineering. Now, if you look at engineering programs, there are so many different disciplines and specializations. So we also have to think about, as an accreditation agency, how we will be accrediting these programs. Now, because of these new type of degree programs, and the second thing is the development or the progress in the digital and the communication system, especially with this distance learning or online programs. It is a serious issue to look into these programs which are totally online. How you will ensure the quality of the program, how you will ensure the end product is the quality that you want to maintain. Because online, we all understand there are certain issues that there are beyond our control. Who is actually taking the exams? When we say you do this assignment, who is actually doing that assignment? I know in face-to-face classes also, we don't know who actually is doing the assignments. But I mean, in online format, of course, the issues are different. Now, do we need to change our program learning outcomes because the format in which we are offering the program is different? Again, in States, for example, we have a big majority of the students who are working students. So when they are working students, they have their own constraints. So we offer evening programs. Now, if we offer evening programs, how frequently we are offering these classes? And then we try to mix online, on-site, different formats, how we will accredit these type of programs. Then we also look into if there is an increased requirement requirement for the quality and the need for mobile and distance education, how we will ensure that we are maintaining the same quality, and when we are assessing these programs, are we assessing them at the same level, or it is not fair to assess a distance learning program at the same level, the level that we use for our face-to-face or on-site programs. And then, as I said earlier, the new directions in engineering education, they are also one of the factors to consider when we are looking at accreditation or assessment for that matter. Okay, I finish here. And I tried to put all the languages that I was expecting people to be here, but if you can follow 2-3 languages, I'm happy. Right. So now what I will do is I'll ask my second presenter to present his ideas, and then at the end we will give you a chance to ask questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning. My name is Alfonso Duran, as Chairman said. However, I'm not coming from the Universidad Europea. That's one of my fellow authors. I'm coming from the engineering school in the Carlos III University. And I will try to emulate the chairman's brevity, but I'm not sure whether I will be able to get to the same level. Anyway, the subject of my presentation was focused not so directly on accreditation. It was more on the actual issues surrounding the adoption, the implementation of the European higher education area, the EHEA, because as probably you're all aware of, in Spain, in Europe in general, we're now in the process of adopting that. And so that was the focus, but I've added a few things on accreditation anyway. Of course, it's closely related. I guess you are all familiar with the Bologna or European higher education area approach. Those are some of the objectives. It tries to foster a change or a shift from a more theoretical, traditional approach to education to a more applied capabilities, continuous evaluation, active learning, these types of things, at the same time as fostering commonality among the programs in the various universities in Europe so as to promote things such as mobility, comparability, things like that. So that implies two sets of changes. One are the more formal structure-related changes like the degree structure, adopting a common cycle structure. Like in Spain, a decision has been taken to adopt a common length for all the graduate degrees, 4 years, and 1 to 2 years for the master's degrees, and then the doctoral degree, which is basically the dissertation after the master. While as before, we have all sort of different lengths and types of degrees, which were not common with other European countries. Another standardization decision has been the adoption of the GCTS as a single unit of measurement, which is measured in student hours as opposed to in faculty hours. All those are significant changes. Now, we have gone through, of course, legal changes, basic law approved in 2007, some changes adopted later on. And the reason maybe why I'm here is because I work at the UC3M, Carlos III University, and we were the first Spanish university to jump into the bandwagon of EHEA at full speed. We, as soon as possible, in the first possible occasion, we changed, transformed all degrees, and therefore we're hitting the wall before most other people in Spain. So that was the basic reason for this presentation. Come here and share these experiences with you. Since we changed everything at the same time, that gave us an advantage. Since we were redesigning everything at once, degrees that had initially been designed independently, we had the chance to do a unified design. So, for example, we had some common courses, some core courses that cut across all engineering degrees. I'll restrict my talk to engineering degrees, even though we have other types of degrees. So I will also take as an example a subject that I am personally coordinating, which is Fundamentos de Gestión Empresarial, which is a core subject taught in the second course for all engineering degrees, for all 10 degrees, 7 of which have started the course itself this year, because they started last year, and this is taught in the second course. So that's what I will use, to give some examples. As I said, there are formal changes, and then there are methodological changes. The methodological changes are those types of things. Change to continuous evaluation, change to more assignments, hands-on experience, focusing on learning outcomes as opposed to on the teaching process. That's the theory. There are challenges for that. That represents getting customized paths for each student's learning, but with existing resources. Now, industry has faced this challenge before. Mass customization seems to be sort of the approach. You try to get customized products or processes with efficiency of the mass production. So I guess that's what we are supposed to be doing. Now we're facing many challenges. The most obvious ones are resource constraints. Resources are limited. You all know we're in a crisis, so we're lucky if they don't cut it, if you get the same as you did before. But you are supposed to do things that normally would take more resources. So unless we design things, courses, approaches, teaching processes, thinking already about scale and about scalability and about efficiency, it will just not work, not with the current resource levels. That's one of the first learnings. The second, and I'll come back much more to this, is faculty motivation and incentive structure. If you are going to get the faculty to do all those things, you better find a way to motivate them to do those. And that's not, in my opinion, the current situation. That's not the incentive structure that we have. For students, there is also some issues. They are motivated in some ways, not so much in others. In Spain, in particular, there is some cultural shocks, some cultural resistance in the adoption of this process. And then, well, this customization and this allowing a lot of initiative to the students means that, especially with large volume subjects, like the one I was mentioning, being taught right now in this second term simultaneously in 25 different groups, it's quite hard to achieve homogenization and making sure that to ensure a fair level of standardization and when you want to allow each of those 25 groups to follow a little bit the students' initiative. So that's a challenge, particularly in grading. Grading is not easy under this environment, but how do you ensure, on the one hand, accuracy, much easier with traditional exams than, for example, with assignments, and how do you assure fairness? Fairness from 2 points. One is same commonality. You give different assignments in many different groups. How do you ensure they are all of the similar level, but they are graded similarly? That's one thing. And the other main issue is plagiarism. Of course, there can be plagiarism in an exam, but that's easier to control. But in assignments, it's a much more difficult issue. So those are some of the issues. Now, some of the approaches that we have taken, you have to take approaches at various levels, and I'll discuss university or school level approaches briefly, and then discuss a bit more the course level approaches, which are closer to my area of responsibility. You do need an environment that has to change. For example, our university had to change the regulation about evaluation. The previous regulation about evaluation was focused on the final exam. For example, students had the right to get 100% of the marks with just the final exam. Of course, it's impossible to implement EHEA with that. So this has to be changed. How the extraordinary exam held in September, when you fail the first one, how is it affected by the continuous evaluation? Again, had to be regulated, and the actual structure, the actual academic structure, was also changed. The decision was taken to go for 2 sessions each week for all subjects, one in a large group, one in small split groups, with the idea of teaching more theory in one and practical sessions and interaction in the second one. And well, one last element that was not there when I wrote the paper, so that's why it's not there, but we're actively now in the process of trying to obtain ABET accreditation. So those are school level things. Now, at the course level, as I mentioned, I'll take the example of this core subject being taught in 25 different groups at once. We have been carrying pilots for several years, but they were smaller size. And now for the first time, we are experiencing what a large scale is. We had like 8 groups in the first term, and now we are experiencing the all 25 in parallel. So, especially the small groups, we have found they are quite interesting for some things, but they do also create quite a few issues, such as the coordination. When you have a big group and then several small groups, how do you coordinate those? The synchronization. You have a national holiday on one day, and then you miss the theoretical class, or you miss the class in one of the small groups but not in the others. So everything gets out of sync. Resource availability, I already discussed. And you have to work with 30 teachers or professors, and they are all different. Some of them are eager to do it, willing to put in the effort, and so you better let them follow the spirit of the change. Some others, fully reluctant, not much you can do about it. It would be best to let them continue their old way. So what do you do? Further, one of the approaches we wanted to follow is in the small groups to further subdivide the people into 5 people working groups. Again, that's quite interesting, works nicely sometimes, gives a lot of problems on other cases. So far the setup. Now from now onwards, some of the, do you want, learnings or experiences we wanted to share with, especially with people that may be in a similar situation. One is, those are tackle the issues I just mentioned. One is sampling-based grading. Continuous evaluation requires continuous assignments and tests and so on. If you try to grade them all with groups of the size imposed by the budgetary limitations that we inherit from the past, then you just kill the professors, and professors don't like to be killed, so they just don't do it. And if you are going to grade something badly, you better don't grade it. So the only, or one approach we're taking is you give them a lot of assignments, but you only grade a few. So that's sampling-based grading. It's not really sampling, because to ensure fairness, we have to grade the same assignments per student, because some of them are more difficult than others. And of course they don't, well, of course not, but in fact they don't like it, and they argue, and they say, well, that's very unpredictable, and you have to explain that also in exams things are unpredictable because you don't ask about everything, you just ask a few questions, and maybe you ask them the one they don't know. But anyway, that's a survival approach in our experience. Then good learning management system support is always important, but even more important if you have to collect number of assignments and to deliver a number of tests, and you have to have small groups and big groups. So we changed the one we had. We went to Moodle, as most people around the world are doing. That was good. This is something we're still struggling with, trying to automate the grading, or at least to IT mediate the grading with test databases and automatic test generation and even automatic grading. We have done a few things. That's not yet full speed, but we do have some hopes in here, like getting from our resources even test banks and then uploading them into our system and then automatically generating the tests and automatically grading them. Of course, we face issues such as language. Most of the initial material is in English, and most of our sessions are taught in Spanish. This has proved essential. Anti-plagiarism tool. We're using, again, Turnitin, the world leader. That's one of the reasons why I think it was worth it changing the learning management system to allow for close integration, because when you're handling big volumes, you cannot have. I've been teaching in other institutions out of Spain where they have Turnitin in one side and the learning management system in another one, and it's not integrated. That's fine for small numbers. Couldn't survive with those volumes, 500 students. Couldn't survive with unintegrated tools. Now, those are well integrated, so that's very nice. Well, and some other complementary approaches. So those are all in the paper. So let me just finish by mentioning a few things which are not in the paper, because they are more recent experiences I just wanted to share with you. This is about the cultural issues we have found trying to implement this in Spain in particular. This may not be fully applicable to other countries, but I think this is a little bit of an Anglo-Saxon approach being transplanted into many countries, and I guess other Latin countries at least would have some of the same approach, some of the same issues. Big one is attendance. Spanish students are used to not to go to class, and they have developed a feeling that that's a right that they have. Now, do those approaches make any sense if some people don't come to class, that's okay, but if less than half of the people, in many cases, if less than 1/3 of the people come to class, what are we talking about? We're just joking. Now, on the other hand, if we were to believe that attendance was crucial, how would we ensure it? Compulsory attendance, as I have seen in any other country in the world? Well, not in Spain. People would greatly challenge it. Actually, we're doing that, and we have a lot of issues. Students are challenging that, and they say, well, if you force me to come, then I'll come here, then I'll talk, disturb, make noise, and that's your fault because you are forcing me to come, which you shouldn't. And of course, it's an administrative headache and workload for faculty members. So the problem is that it's in everybody's interest, except the society, to look somewhere else and just have 30 students rather than 90, much better for you, students are happy. Incentives take you to accepting as normal something which I feel is incompatible with this. Plagiarism, again, same problem, cultural issues perceived as socially accepted, even, solidarity. If you catch them copying, like, for example, of the anti-plagiarism tools, then they say, okay, you can penalize the one that copied, but not me, that let him copy. I should be okay. So, on the other hand, if you don't make sure that plagiarism is not there, that creates a great fairness problem. If you give assignments an important weight in the total, especially in very competitive, as you all know, engineering courses in many European countries, especially in Spain, they are extremely hard, extremely competitive, very high failure rates. So in this very demanding environment, if you allow some of them to copy, that's quite unfair. And taking those things into a big risk is the dumping down. Just give them easy assignments. Well, since they are going to copy, you don't grade them harshly. They all pass. They are all very happy, and you go on to follow your own metrics. So dumping down is a great risk. Great risk. Well, some of the volume-related issues, I'll just skip that because I wanted to mention the summary. So for me, the summary is that there is a great potential in the methodological changes. That's actually the way to learn. I'm fully convinced. But misaligned incentive systems can easily hinder the implementation, not marginally, fully. The essence of the implementation can be destroyed by that. Faculty evaluation, we are evaluated by counting our papers, and teaching is perceived as a necessary evil. Well, as doing EHEA requires tremendous effort by that, which goes against your metrics. Now, how are degrees evaluated? Here, I'm not sure current degree evaluation or accreditation focuses on learning outcomes. I've experienced various types of degree accreditation, and believe it or not, many of those count the papers written by the professors. Again, or they focus on formal aspects, like, well, what do you say the outcomes are? But no credible attempt is done to measure the outcomes. You all know the PISA reports where they measure the actual outcomes of what high school students learn. There have been discussions about trying to do something like this in higher education. Nothing of that is done. Even basic things such as attendance is not looked at. You can have your degree fully accredited, fully approved, get the best marks with students not attending. Doesn't get looked into. The actual processes that I have seen so far, and I have seen many, for various types of degrees, look at formal aspects. And then, well, student incentives I already mentioned. So my summary is you don't get what you expect, you get what you inspect. So just as a conclusion, yeah, it has two major components. The tangible one was imposed by degree, so for better or worse it will be implemented, no doubt about that. But the more subtle active learning and so on may be implemented, or it may be a failure in Spain. That's, I think, is not clear yet. And if you implement the formal ones without implementing the accompanying methodological changes, it can be worse than doing nothing. And, well, it's fraught with difficulties, as I mentioned. And, well, some of the major risks are dumbing down, as I mentioned, and something that I see among a lot of my colleagues. Normally it's not said openly in places like this, but 3/4 of my colleagues say, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just do the same as I did my whole life, and if they want me to call it names, I'll do. But, so lip service implementation is, again, a major risk. Please I don't want to sound too negative. I do believe this is a great opportunity, but I'm afraid we may miss it. Thank you. So the questions are there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to try and be very brief in my presentation. I'm here representing CTI, which is the Engineering Degree Commission in France. And in fact, it's the accreditation body that's in charge of accrediting engineering education in France. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the situation in France, how CTA works, and so on. And then I would like also to talk about an European initiative, which is the EURES project, CTI is a part of this project and is in fact an attempt to develop an European referential for engineering accreditation. So I'm going to be very quick with the CTI's presentation. As I've said, it's the engineering accreditation body in France, and we are, as our president says, an old lady, because we were created in 1934, and in fact, in 1934, the European higher education area didn't exist, and the accreditation agencies as such didn't exist either. But CTI was created with the mission of of evaluating periodically all engineering education in France, and the mission was help to develop the quality of engineering education and help the promotion of the profession, etc. So we had this national mission, but of course with the creation of the higher education area, CTI has evolved, and now it's really a part of this network of agencies that doing accreditation all over Europe. ANECA is a part of this network of agencies, by the way. So we are part of ENQA and EHEA, which is a consortium for accreditation, and we are part of this European project I would like to talk about briefly, which is the EURES project. Let me talk a little bit about the situation in France, because I think, sorry, I think I did something. It didn't happen. Right. The situation in France is very particular as to the engineering profession, because France, it might seem surprising, but it's one of the most liberal countries in Europe regarding the engineering profession. There is not a colegio de ingenieros, there is not an order of engineers, and not a charter of engineers, and there is not a specific education program established for accessing to the profession, established by law. The company is free to designate who can be called engineer, and the company has the legal responsibility. But even if this is the case, so we are in a very open environment, around 65% of engineers are what we call graduated engineers. So they come from a set of specific programs, and this set of specific programs are evaluated by CTI. It's our population of, or our working population, we could say. And so this is recognized by law, and for example, these people, these engineering graduates have access to collective labor agreements, etc. And something that's very particular, in France, there is not a law that establishes what's the content of these engineering degrees, except for one law in 2002 that established that all engineering degrees had a master level. That is the only legal text we have. But otherwise, it is CTI who establishes the content and what are the criteria that should be implemented in the engineering degrees. So as you probably know, France is an exception because we are not strictly part of the bachelor-master system. So we are Euro-compatible, we like to say that, but in fact the engineering master degree in France is a 5-year integrated degree that will provide the student with a master level, and he could go then and continue with doctoral studies. In fact, this 5-year integrated degree very commonly starts with 2 years of preparatory courses, which is really the fundamental scientific core of the program, and then we will go and do 3 more years, more specific, etc. Of course, there are gateways with the standard bachelor-master system. So how does CTI work? I'm gonna try to explain this very quickly, but I think this is quite illustrative because we have a round table, we have 32 members, and they work on a voluntary basis, the same as AVET does. And this plenary assembly of 32 people, the plenary assembly has a mixed composition, and 50% of the people come from academia, and 50% of the people come from industry. So this is the main decisory organ, and it's actually making the accreditation decisions. And then on top of that, we have what we call the executive committee. So 10 of these people are in charge of managing the group and institutional relations and so on. And then we have working groups that For example, we have a working group that's in charge of revising the referential, another that's in charge of international issues, etc. And then we have a panel of experts, around 50 experts, including international experts that will go into our panels. So that's the functional structure. And in France, how does this work? So all engineering programs, this 65% population, should pass the CTI's accreditation every 6 years. And we are talking of more than 200 institutions, both private and public, and we are talking of more than 30,000 graduates every year, 60% of all the master graduates in science and technology in France. So to be very brief, because I don't have the time to go into detail into the accreditation process, but I would like to talk of two things. One, what's the profile that's expected out of French engineering graduate? First of all, there is a requirement in terms of time. So the program should last 5 years. And then we have what we call mandatory criteria. This is, I know it's very general, but just to give you an idea. So a French engineer should have first a broad and a strong basis in fundamental sciences and technology, in fundamental sciences here. And this is linked to the ability to adapt in the long term. Then we should have ways to quickly adapt to the profession. So if we like to say that engineering studies should have, as we said in the previous presentation about the ABET case, should have these two sides, the academic side and the professional side. So French programs really focused on internships, projects, practical initiatives, we would say, that will make the student to be quickly adapted to the markets, to the industry market. Then engineering should include an innovation and research dimension, because we are talking of a master level, so it should be possible to access to the doctoral level. Then there is an important part, and this is quite specific in France, of business, economics, social, human sciences. And finally, communication skills, communication awareness, languages, and so on. So what do we look, how do we do our accreditation? In fact, we do a program accreditation, so we are focusing on specific programs. But of course, we analyze as well all the institutional context, so we will analyze leadership. It's more or less, it works in a very similar way to what we saw in the case of ABET. The accreditation procedure is as well very standard. So we will have this self-evaluation by the institution, then an on-site visit, and evaluation report, and then the final decision could be no accreditation at all, full accreditation for 6 years with recommendations, or accreditation for 2 years or less when major problems are found. We will create a team, and so something that's quite specific is that there's always going to be a member of CTI in the team that's going to coordinate the process, and then we will have experts from 2 to 6 people. We will always incorporate a student and someone with an international background. Something that is quite new, we could say, is that CTI is not only doing national accreditation, but also is active in other countries of the world. So we are doing accreditation in Belgium, Switzerland, and overseas, like in China, Vietnam, and so on. And so this links directly with the EURES project. So what's the EURES project? In fact, this is an initiative that's an European initiative. CTI was one of the founding members of this initiative, and there was first an association, the European Network of Engineering Education, that tried to develop a common referential for the accreditation of engineering education. And in fact, they did a really deep preparatory work comparing all the different systems in different countries. There was an initial core of 7 agencies from Germany, France, UK, etc. And they developed this common referential. And So how does this work? Something that's very important is that EURES is going to be applied with a bottom-up approach. This is to say, we are not going to create an European accreditation board, but these agencies that are part of the project are going to deliver the EURES level in addition to their specific national accreditation. So this is how it works. As for the elements of the EURES system, this is maybe better if you are interested that you have a look at the website. But we have a set of program outcomes that we have defined for all engineering degrees. We have outcomes for what we call first cycle degrees, the ingeniero técnico bachelor, and we have outcomes for the second cycle degrees, this is to say master level, and then we have outcomes for the exceptional integrated degree, this is the case of France. And then we have a set of accreditation procedures. In fact, all the agencies that are part of the system are externally accredited in order to be authorized to deliver the label. So that's about it. I hope it was useful, and thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on. Let's sit here, and if you have any questions.
My name is Bill Williams. I'm based in Portugal, and I have a comment and a question. My comment is, I just want to say, Alfonso, many of the issues that you mentioned, and I'm grateful that you did raise them in the Spanish context. I think we can find them equally in the Portuguese context, at least in my experience. The second thing, Mudasser, in terms of ABET, well, my question really is that an accreditation system that was designed for the US context in recent years has come to become quite important, as we heard, in the Spanish context, various European countries, and also in Southeast Asia, for example. It is, I think, from what I understand as an outsider, it has actually brought about some very far-reaching changes in engineering education in Malaysia and various other Southeast Asian countries. So my question is, what's the feeling, or what would be your comment on that aspect of something created in the US context but is now having far-reaching effects in other parts of the world?
Yeah, you are right. I mean, initially when ABET started about 60 years ago, it was mainly for US institutions. But for the last, I would say 8 to 10 years, ABET was getting a lot of requests from international institutes to accredit them. Again, the idea here is that these institutes want ABET accreditation to claim that we are teaching at the same quality, same level, and at the same type of courses that you can get in any American university. So they are in fact encouraging students to take their courses rather than going to states and spending a lot more money. So I mean, initially ABET was not looking into this, but most recently, like they have accredited program from in Saudi Arabia. There is an application from Qatar, UAE, Morocco. So ABET is getting a lot of requests for accreditation. And the main focus, as I said earlier, the reason for that is to just for the universities to claim that we are at the same level as any American university and get more student population. And which is basically the aim of American universities getting accreditation, is to attract more students, plus to claim that their graduates have a better education than any other institutes because it's very competitive. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I suppose that you do what you ABET is doing the accreditation. It's not only of the programs, but also of professor curriculum.
When any institute applies for accreditation, for example, they want to get their computer science program accredited. there is a self-study questionnaire that that institute or that department has to submit. It includes student transcripts, some of the students, and the team who is actually going to visit, the chair of the team will determine whose transcript we will get. So it's not that the institute will pick up the best student transcript and give it to the. Plus, they will have all the portfolios for all the faculty who is teaching in the program. Now, as you were pointing out about counting the research papers, ABIT does require that the faculty is current in the discipline. So if it's a computer science program, it requires that some of the faculty has a PhD in computer science, plus the faculty who is teaching in the program, especially higher level courses, they are publishing or they are doing some consultancy or something to ensure that they are current in the field. So your question, yes, they do look at the CVs or the resume of the faculty to ensure. By looking at the resume or the portfolio, we also determine how stable the faculty is. Now, if we see in the portfolios that a faculty comes in and leaves after 2-3 years, and it's consistent that nobody is there more than 3 years, then there is a problem. And there is a problem with the institute to support the program. So that is a negative reflection on the institute, saying you don't support the program, or you're not paying the faculty enough. Or if you are paying enough, there is a problem somewhere. That's why people are not staying. So I hope I answered your.
What are the criteria to accredit the professors? Because here in Spain, the only criteria is the number of articles that you are writing, not the technical experience you have.
Yeah, if I'm getting your question right, we don't accredit or certify any of the faculty. This is the requirement for the program to get accredited, that the faculty is current in the discipline. We don't have any numbers. We don't look at how many papers in the last. But if a faculty is teaching, for example, advanced operating systems course, and then we realize that the faculty actually has not published anything in the last 5 years and is not doing any consultancy work, then it is difficult to prove that the faculty is actually teaching advanced concepts. Sometimes it happens is, in some of my visits, that we feel that a 400 level course is being taught by a person who has a master's degree. Now, we think, again, our perspective is that advanced level courses, 400, 300 level, should be taught by somebody with a PhD. Not specifically in computer science. For example, if I'm teaching advanced computer architecture, I may have a degree in electrical engineering or computer engineering. That will work. But if I have a maths PhD and I'm teaching advanced computer architecture, then in your resume of that faculty, it has to show somewhere that the person is comfortable with the field. So that's how all these things are drawn. Again, I'm not representing ABIT here. Because I just do that as a voluntary work. So I'm a full-time faculty at one of the universities in San Diego. And as she pointed out very rightly, it's a volunteer work, and there is no money, nothing. We do everything for free. Everybody like me spends a lot of time and effort into this. And as somebody yesterday was asking me why you do it, I said the reason I do it is because I enjoy it. So that's the only benefit that we have.